What's up, everybody? It's your girl, Beck Easy.
Hi, everybody. It's your girl, Johan.
Hey, guys. It's Trell, and this is...
The Team. Welcome. Episode number 82. Who, me? Saying
Mine.
welcome.
I couldn't get it out. It's always something going on with you.
Something. Hello, everyone. Thank you for tuning in to yet another episode of your favorite ladies, The Team Podcast.
Hey, guys.
We have some wonderful guests with us.
Yes.
Please, fellas, introduce yourself. Let the people know who you are.
Age before beauty.
Dr. Lorenzo Boyd. I'm the Vice President for Diversity and Inclusion at the University of New Haven. Former law enforcement and currently police trainer.
Okay.
Welcome.
See, we got the perfect people. And you, sir, our friend.
Name is Tilly, as most of y'all know.
Yay.
Got about 6 years of law enforcement experience. I currently work in federal and military law enforcement down in Charlotte, North Carolina. That's about it.
We love it. We have been trying to do this episode for a little minute, and I'm happy that we waited because we have expertise
perfect timing,
and knowledge,
right.
yes, on this stage. So thank you so much for coming in. We're going to have a wonderful episode.
Yeah.
How was y'all weekends? Anybody want to go first?
It was relaxing. It was good.
Nice.
It was
Good.
Relaxing is always great.
Mine was hectic because I was traveling most of the time. I flew up here Friday, running around seeing family yesterday. Now I fly right back out tonight, so it's been hectic for me.
Yes.
See, he came from Charlotte to
Right.
record
We
with us.
appreciate it.
We're so happy.
We definitely
I didn't
appreciate
get an
that.
accent yet, so I'm good.
Oh, good. That's silly. How about y'all? Y'all know I celebrate my birthday this weekend.
Yes, birthday girl was
Yes.
yesterday. Her birthday
This
was
is
yesterday.
32. Yes, I had a wonderful time. I conquered my pitcher of margaritas and myself from Tay-Tay's, Te Amos. So life was good. A mixture of family and friends. We went strawberry picking with my son in the morning, and then I turned up, and then I came home, gave him a bath, and I went to sleep.
Facts.
Balance.
Perfect. Yes, balance. How about you guys?
My weekend was the same. I worked, obviously, and then hung out with the birthday girl and the team, and went home with sleep.
Right.
I like good early fun. I was
Yeah.
home by 8:30. I'd probably sleep by 9:30.
It was good. I can't do the late nights, 2 and 3 o'clock in the morning anymore. It's just
So, Trell, you still go to sleep mad early?
Yes, I know.
Yes.
Team Narc.
Not in public anymore, but yes, I
Yeah.
be sleep.
That's funny. How about you, Joe?
Same as you guys, but I'm going to add work, and I'm also going to add. I tried a restaurant today.
Oh,
A soul food restaurant.
Whoa.
It was good.
A different one, or
Really?
one you've been to before?
So she's anti soul food in New Haven. 'cause
Yes,
she
because all
doesn't
my
have good-
experiences have been horrible. And we're not going to name any names, but it's just been horrible. So don't name any names because I'm going to say...
We'll talk after.
It was terrible. But this is a new restaurant. It's by my church on Willie Avenue. It's called... I don't remember the name. But I had ribs, which were good. I had cabbage, which was good. So, good
Was it
things.
beef ribs?
Good things.
Huh?
Was it beef ribs?
No, probably pork.
But
it was
I might have to
good,
go
and I
check
wasn't
it out because I was thinking of
complaining.
soul food for dinner today.
So shout out to you guys.
That's because she's so spoiled by Oohs and Ahs down in D.C.
Mm-hmm.
Have you been? Haven't you been? I love their
Yeah.
food. It's amazing. And Miss Tootsie's in Philly.
Yes.
Their food is the bomb.
Yeah.
So,
Yes.
so
Oh,
I'm,
yeah. You know Oohs and Ahs. Yeah.
So I'm happy that I was able to have a good experience in New Haven.
Sounds good to me.
Oh, that's where I'll be going for dinner today.
Right. Sounds good. Joe, you got a line for us?
Okay, I do. So this is, I'm just going to give you a little background so you can try to guess
Okay.
the lyrics. So this is a pop star. And it's a woman. So when she was a star, no one was touching her. Okay?
Okay.
And she's been recently...
Oh, I already know.
She's recently been on the news. So the lyrics are, but now I'm stronger than yesterday. Now it's nothing but my way. My loneliness ain't killing me no more.
Britney Spears.
Yep. What's
Wow.
is killing
Was it
me?
the background or the song?
Both.
Yeah.
I was gonna say Britney Spears because the background, the song, wasn't really getting to me until the end of what you just said.
Oh, okay. Then yesterday.
Okay.
The way
The
you were
tempo
reading
helps.
it, I was like, who is that? Because you're just reading it real plain.
And And that's why, every line she reads it like in plain language. We're like, I don't know
Once
that.
you put the
After
tempo
about
to it,
3 or
it's okay,
4
now I know the
words,
song.
I got it.
Okay, good. Yeah.
Good. I'm
Shout
really
out to
proud.
Britt. Keep her in her
take a shot.
our prayers.
Oh,
We
yeah.
keep forgetting to bring some real liquor.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Somebody just say
But
something about
yeah,
shots?
she's being held captive by her.
supposed to?
Oh wait. Oh, look at this. Danny done. Look. So the deal
we just
is,
started a new.
yeah, we started a new thing because she doesn't drink. So
We
if
just started
we
a
don't
new
get
thing.
it, we have to drink.
Right.
But if
If you
we do
guys get it, I
she
have
gotta
to.
drink. So bottoms up. Look, I know.
Don't
we be working.
put God
Don't
into
say
this.
that. Jeez.
You about to put it in your
Lord.
wine?
That's corny. I guess we'll let you slide.
Did she give me a shot cup?
It's gonna hit though because I had some tequila in my wine the other day and I drank at some point.
Have the rest of the shot, Danny. You didn't say I had to
Whatever.
have it all.
I guess. But yeah, Brittany has been in the news.
She's going through
She's
a
trying
lot.
to get her dad to not be a conservator anymore over her. And he has been for many years.
Many years.
Yeah, so
So she can't do nothing. She can't spend her own money. She can't go where she wants to go. She was saying
She said
how
that
she's on
yeah.
birth control. She can't have any more kids. It's
he's
just
like making her be
weird.
on birth control. It's very weird. But you know what? I respect Justin Timberlake for his tweets.
Statement?
Yeah, he was like, although our relationship was so long ago, me and my wife, send our prayers to her because nobody should be controlled. They should be able to live how they want to live. So I liked that of him.
Yeah, I feel like how long that been going on? Because I feel like it was in the news like
been
sometime
going on
last
for
year and it just
years.
came back up.
Years.
Very long
It's been
time.
years, but there was a documentary that came out about it maybe 2-3 months ago.
And she just took the stand the other day, like speaking her
She's
truth
like,
as
I'm
to
not
why she doesn't
okay.
wanna-
Like, I'm trapped and I want to be able to live my life. I made this living and I can't do anything. She hasn't had custody of her kids since they were younger. Like, she's totally been trapped since she probably shaved her hair off.
And I think that's when he gained
think so.
conservatorship over her. And we have to understand, like, people do have moments. Like, she had a moment.
Mm-hmm.
If she's capable of taking care of her kids and being functioning again, I think that you shouldn't just be a conservator forever.
Yeah, because she shaved her head off, 15 years ago?
Literally,
been a
we were like in
minute.
middle school.
It's been a
Like,
minute.
It's been a very long time. And it's a movie actually on Netflix about like conservators. You know how sometimes you're a ward to the state, so it's not even somebody that you know. It could be anybody.
I
And they
Care a
were-
Lot.
Yes,
That was a great movie.
And like they were like fraud. Like she had connections with the doctors. The doctor would write, "This person is incapable of, taking care of themselves." She would be over them. And it was usually people that had money, like,
Yep.
and she would like take
their money.
everything from them and just put them in a nursing home. So there's one lady that they took. She was like a part of this like Irish mob or something like that. And she was like, "They're gonna come and get you." And she was like, "What do you mean?" And they came and got her. Like it's a real good movie. I got to see it. But
Yeah, check that out.
Yeah,
It's funny
conservatorship.
too.
Yeah, it's very good.
A comedy, but
so,
it's
yeah,
good.
Shout out to Brittany.
I care a lot.
On
Yeah.
Netflix.
Oh, please watch it and let us know how you like it. Any hot topics this week?
Yes.
Yeah, so as you guys know, we had recently talked about CT legalizing cannabis on our, I want to say it was, 77 free smoke.
Yeah.
So that became legal. And some key points are less than 1.5 ounce of cannabis among adults aged 21 or over will be legal beginning July 1st. So that's like tomorrow.
Yeah.
Retail sales aim to begin by the end of 2022. Homegrown medical marijuana patients can cultivate up to 6 indoor plants beginning October 1st, and all adults over age 21 can do so beginning July 2023. Erasing prior convictions between January 1st, 2000 and October 1st, 2015, they're going to be automatically erased, and if it's after that, you can require petition.
Petition.
So that's good news.
It is good news.
That's
I'm
good news.
excited that the part about records being expunged. A friend of mine who had very little marijuana on him has a record technically now. So he actually went down to the city of New Haven because he's like, all right, if I go for a job, should I be saying no because it's getting completely erased? Or should I still be saying yes?
Say no.
Yeah, I
Right.
would think no because erased it ain't never happened.
Right, you're right. Erase means
I don't know what you're talking
non-existent. Right.
And that's amazing for him because imagine how many job opportunities that he was denied.
And there's a
because-
lot of jobs now too that aren't even asking that question because they are starting to higher people who have had previous offenses. My thing is, if you did your time for it, like, I shouldn't be still penalized
Right.
after doing the time, you know?
Right.
But we'll get into all that type of stuff. But
Right.
shout out to CT. We'll see what happens. I'm trying to get into the selling portion because I know a lot of our community are just happy to have it on their person and use it. But those millions of dollars are going to someone, and I need to be one of those people. So
Yeah.
we need to figure out how we get a license or something.
And even if you don't get into selling it, get into the stocks.
Absolutely.
Word.
You
Because
know.
it's gonna be lit.
Silent, look, a silent partner. Right.
I do.
That might be the better choice.
I do like that. So a portion of the revenue will go to communities negatively impacted by the war on drugs, and then there's also going to be a portion going towards prevention and recovery services.
Nice. That's
I like that.
definitely needed.
Yeah.
But you got to be careful there, because if a portion is going to that, does that mean the city and the state doesn't give the same amount that they used to
Right.
give? So
Because
there's not necessarily a
True.
net gain. Because if you're getting an extra $1 million, the city may say that's $1 million less we have to put in.
Right. That's true.
True. It was
I
so
hope
many
not.
lines. And when Keeper was on here talking to us about the bills, she was saying it's a certain wording that you have to look out for in the bills. Because the bills had to like get investigated. They were investigating it for a moment because of a portion on there about the equity and making sure it's across the board. Everybody can be a part of the selling and getting a license and all that. So yeah, you're right. We got to make sure we know those minor details.
Yep. So hopefully they continue to still do their part.
Yeah, we gonna see.
We'll
we
see.
Gonna see. Anything else?
So our next topic, those of you who've been watching the news lately, the verdict is in the George Floyd case. The officer was sentenced to 22.5 years
Yep.
in jail. I was
Yeah.
actually surprised about the length of time that he got. I was like, oh, okay,
Yeah.
22.5 years?
Yeah.
Wow.
It's a decent amount of time. I guess the minimum he could have gotten was 15 years and the max was 40 years. And a lot of people said they wanted 40 years. The judge made a statement that, he's not doing it based off emotions. He's doing it based off of the charges that he was convicted of. And, because he actually did more. I guess it was only 150 months he was supposed to technically do for those charges. But he upped it to like whatever, how many months equals the 22 and a half. I'm not doing no math right now. But yeah, yeah, to watch the victim statements, his
Yeah.
daughter and, them say it. And then a lot of people were saying how his mother, her statement didn't even acknowledge the family and how they were like, that was a bit
Siobhan's
off. It
mother?
just was like, this is my son. It's not just affecting him, it's affecting me as a mother. And didn't even acknowledge the
Yeah.
Floyd family.
I read her statement.
But I'm not surprised.
Not surprised at all.
It was a little weird. I didn't like them interviewing his daughter, like poking her with all those questions. And I also was weirded out by him giving condolences.
Yeah.
I don't know. They said he needed to do it to show remorse.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's cringy. I don't know. For
that
me, it's
didn't
cringy.
bother me, but I guess you've even got no more to say. What else you gonna say? But I would have liked to heard a little bit more.
Well, he said he
than
couldn't
what he
say
said.
more.
Right. And I get that.
But that
he
was
coulda
so
added a
weird,
little-
right?
I mean, for me,
little
I
more.
can't say much because there's
Other legal
attorney
matters.
things, legal matters, but there's going to be details that might
yeah, that was weird.
help you out or make
For
you
me,
feel
I
better.
don't even understand why, like his mother saying something, him saying something. He did what he did, sentenced him for what he did. It shouldn't
And
matter
that's
what
it.
anything anyone
Right.
has to say about it after the fact.
Right.
You found him guilty, give him the sentence you think he should have, and go from there.
Right.
Like, nothing he says is going to change what happened.
Right.
This
Or,
is
like,
fact.
it shouldn't change. Like, if he went up there and said something, gave
Profound.
condolences, started crying or something like that, like, all right, instead of 22 and a half years, let's give him 20 years, something like that. Like,
Right.
no, if you're going to give him 22 and a half years, just give him 22 and a half years.
Period.
Right.
Right.
I think
Yeah.
the thing about that part is, remember, we didn't do victim impact statements 20 years ago. That's still fairly new.
Right.
So when we talk about the restorative process, a lot of times in the criminal justice system, the only reason that you need a victim is to establish that a crime has been committed. And then we ignore the victim and we never care anything else about the victim.
Right.
Bringing the victim in for a victim impact statement is part of the restorative process because they
after
need
the-
closure as well. But
Good
if
point.
you allow on one side,
You gotta
then
allow it
have
on
to
the
allow
other.
the other
Okay.
side, which is why the mother got to say something. And it doesn't matter what they say. That has nothing to do with the case.
Right.
It has nothing to do with the trial. It has everything to do with
Their
closure,
closure.
for them.
Yeah.
Because they needed to say something.
And I
Yeah,
respect
that
that.
makes sense.
That's valid. Now, have you seen or do you think judges take into consideration
No,
those?
absolutely not.
Right, because that's what the judge here said. He had a 22-page,
He already made
He
his
already
decision
knew.
before that.
That's what they
Right,
said.
right.
And that's what the people on CNN were saying. It was like, he ain't go write 22 pages in 15 minutes. He already knew he was
He
going
was
to give
prepared.
him 22 and a half years.
He
Yeah.
did what needed to be done. Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, more would be great, of course, but I'm satisfied with 22 and a half because how often do they have to pay?
I think they
He's
said
1 out of 11 since 2015 that's been convicted.
Yeah.
So
When
to
you look
me,
at
I
the-
just feel like it's a step somewhere.
Yeah.
When you look at the police officers, first of all, police officers are less likely to be tried, period.
Period.
And then when they are tried, they're considerably less likely to be convicted.
Right.
And when they are convicted, they tend to get the minimum.
Right.
And we see that it's a process going from none to some, from some to more.
Yeah.
Because 22 and a half years is the most we've seen in recent times.
Ever.
Because before that, the Walter Scott case in South Carolina, where the guy was shot in the back 6 times,
Right.
the officer there, Michael Slater, he was given 20 years.
See?
The time before that in Minneapolis, the Muslim guy that shot the blonde woman by mistake, he got 10 years. So we see that it's starting
It's
to
getting
progress.
better.
It's
Right.
going in the right direction.
Right.
Yeah, and that's
so
how
for people
I
to
agree with that.
assume that it's going to jump right to the maximum,
It's not.
It's rare that anybody gets the maximum at any point in the system. It's just it doesn't happen all that often.
He
Right. My
wasn't even
sentiments exactly.
really going to be getting convicted either. He
His-
didn't even get
I'm
arrested
still, like,
originally. It
prosec-
wasn't until they were burning targets down and whatnot
Right.
that they said, okay, let's just
And even
bring him in.
still, his defense still wanted him to get probation and time served.
Right. Because you've seen it multiple times. So it's not like they are trying something new.
Yeah.
You've seen it many a times
Right.
where the police, they're just going to do administrative leave and just go
That'd
about
be
their,
that,
their
right.
business.
Like the lady in Texas that shot the guy on
in the wrong
her
apartment.
slash his
Both of them, John, say
Yes.
his name.
yes,
That's
his doorstep.
Right.
I believe she got 4 or 5.
She got 10 years, and
10
she's going to
years.
serve about 5.
Listen, you see my face, I'm like,
Eligible
yeah, so,
for parole, yeah.
like
Yeah.
you said, none to some to more to most. We'll get there eventually, but I'm
We're
happy.
getting there.
This trial definitely made a statement
I think
across
so.
the world, not even just the country, across the world.
I think so.
But let me just say this. The conviction on all counts was the best possible outcome for policing. Because there's still a lot of good cops out there that get into
Right.
it for the right reason, that try to do the right thing.
Absolutely.
Right.
That separates, wait, that's not us.
Absolutely.
And the thing that would have been worse for policing is if he didn't get convicted, that still wraps up all of them together.
Absolutely.
At least now the community feels like they've got some
A sigh of relief.
semblance of justice. And again, they weren't looking for justice per se. The community was just looking for the absence of injustice.
Right.
Because there's been so much injustice with communities of color. So they were grasping for anything that happened, and they got something.
I
So
agree.
that
happy
was a
about
positive.
It.
I
I'm so
agree.
happy
Yeah.
about it. So we'll be digging into that a little bit more after this. I have a You Tried It for the week. So this is usually somebody that does something real out of pocket. We just got to call them out on it. So I asked our listeners if they wanted to hear about the bitter ex or if they wanted to hear about She Said What Now? And everybody said the bitter ex, 80%.
I agreed with that.
So so a friend of mine, was sitting outside of her job. She was on break, and her ex had drove by and had screamed her name. So she just, did a wave, and she's on her phone. Next thing she knows, he's standing in front of her. He must have got out of the car and like, oh hey, what's up? And she was like, hey, how you doing? He was like, see, that's what I be talking about, and it walks off.
What?
So she's like super confused. She's like, what is happening? So then he texts her and goes, see, you try to act like you didn't know me when I came to you, but that's fine. Keep working them doubles.
Okay.
Shady.
So she was like, he's saying keep working those doubles. Like I got to work extra because I'm not with him anymore. When he wasn't paying anything or contributing to anything that was going on. She was like, and I am working overtime so I could finish paying this trip off for me and my child. Like, it was so stupid, but I was cracking up. I said, he gets it. You tried it.
I think the thing that in that story that
Yeah.
made me raise an eyebrow, how does he know she's
That she was
working
doing
doubles?
a double, or if it was
Right.
a regular shift. Right.
Right.
He just wanted to make himself feel better.
That's not the first time he drove by.
Yeah. He should have
Right.
stayed
He be
in his
watching.
car and keep driving. Yeah.
Right. Or
But what are
he's
you
just
getting that
assuming.
for? Like,
She
what
said
response?
hi.
Like, what else do you want from me? I don't even have to talk to you. And
People
I'm
are so
being
weird.
nice doing that.
I'm just so over people being weird.
It was
A lot
very
of people have
weird.
been very weird lately.
Like really
weird.
stalkerish.
And
very-
since we're here, the She Said What Now was the principal here in New Haven that said the N word,
Oh, yeah.
and she still has her job. I get, yeah. They said our superintendent of schools just said to switch her to another school and make her an assistant principal instead of a principal, which we all know her pay wasn't going to change. They're going to let her keep her salary. And our superintendent said that it was just a slip of the tongue.
Not buying it.
And what'd you say yesterday?
I said, slip of the tongue means something you say all the time.
Right. And you
And
are trying to prevent from saying
You
it
forgot you was in mixed company.
in mixed company. Yeah. So then now she's going to be in an office job. I don't know.
I'm assuming this principal wasn't of melanin skin.
Absolutely not. Yeah.
course
It was a
not.
Karen.
Just wanted to make sure.
Yeah. And I guess she said, me as a white woman. So she knew the context in which she was saying that. I mean, what other context is there? But she said as a white, I guess she was trying to say how some people can say it
Why
and
should
some
she be
people
held
can't.
accountable if they
Why are we
if
still
she say
asking
the
that
N-word
question?
when
But instead of saying
when-
N-word, she said.
when kids are allowed to when people are allowed to call us crackers and whatnot, why are we held accountable for saying the N-word?
But she said it, so.
But she
We'll
said the
see.
word instead of saying the N-word, and I guess, the people that she said it to took it to administration and was like, we're kind of uncomfortable that she said that.
Yeah, so we'll
and
see.
nobody's just letting anybody say cracker.
Right.
Offense is offense. Like, if you're offended
No one
by it,
even
it's
says
wrong.
cracker anymore. Like who
Nobody
Right,
says
nobody-
that. Right.
says that?
Nobody says
I
that
actually
at
said
all.
it the other day, but I ordered soup.
Oh,
Okay.
see?
Right, and that, exactly. Cracker is a very regular word. Just like how people was getting offended. Remember, people were starting to get offended over the whole Karen thing.
Oh,
Yeah.
It's like, why are you guys trying to use that as slur? It's
I
just
would
a
never
name.
use the word cracker to
No.
To
describe
refer-
someone.
Me either.
Like, I have white best friends. I would never disrespect them like, you're a cracker. I would never disrespect anyone.
It doesn't even
I don't
sound
think- it don't-
disrespectful.
I don't think
Right.
I've ever said you cracker
Yeah, no.
or that cracker.
She tried it. They all tried it, so we'll see what happens. But kudos to the Board of Ed, the board members, because they're actually still pushing. Like, even though the superintendent said what she said, even though the mayor agreed on her decision, they're like, no, we need to do something. And that's what we're supposed to be doing. They work for us. We the reason why you're getting paid. So, no, if something ain't right, parents, y'all speak out, give your opinions, write your letters, because you know I'm good for a letter.
I see exactly, because you're the leader of the kids. So if you're saying that, you have no consideration of the kids that you're serving.
Right.
Nope. Right, exactly. So,
Like, do you even care about them?
right.
Yeah.
And again, why in 2021 are we still asking, why can't, well, you said and I can't?
Yeah.
Why are we still asking that question?
Right.
Let
I
it
always say,
go.
like, out of everything like black people have been through, can't we just have the word? Whether
Right.
whether you use it or not, I know it's a whole big back and forth whether we should even use it. But why? Just let's have a word. It's just one
let's
word.
have it.
It's a 5-letter word. Just let's
Right,
have
it's
it.
ours.
Just give it. Let us keep it. Just like TikTok. You see how black creatives are banning or
Protesting.
protesting TikTok. So now all the other people don't have nothing to do because
Those
they can't
some very
steal our
bad
stuff.
dances. Very
Yeah,
bad dances.
I know. So we create basically everything.
We're
We are the
innovators.
blueprints. We
Yeah,
are the
respect
blueprint.
us, so.
Always have been.
Trell, are you rooting for anybody this week?
I am. I'm rooting for the first time in U.S. history, quote unquote, black women in sports are set to own the narrative at this year's Tokyo Olympics. So I'm rooting for all of our black female Olympians.
They're going to Tokyo.
I have like 23 listed here.
That's
I'm
a
not
lot.
going to name them all, but I will say a few names. We got Simone Biles, obviously.
Yes.
Naomi Osaka, tennis. Sha'Carri Richardson, track. You know, she's been all over
Yeah.
social media
Social
this
media.
week. Allison Felix, track. Asia Wilson, basketball. Simone Manuel, swimming, and so on and so forth. And they still are, there are still people qualifying. So I'm hoping to see more black faces.
I'm excited. I'm
More black
excited.
female faces.
And I seen that Telfar is going to be doing the uniforms for Kenya, I want to say.
That's a dude.
I got to double check. But yeah, he's going to be designing the outfits for one of the teams.
That's dope.
That's amazing
Another
for
black-owned
him.
That
company.
is big.
Yeah, so shout out to them doing great
That's amazing for
things.
him.
It is because he's a whole a new brand.
Yes.
So that's great.
So yeah, I'm excited. You have a question for us? Are we gonna go right
Yeah,
into
I
it?
do.
Okay.
So Rihanna was out recently. I don't know if you guys seen on social media.
Yes.
She was out with her boo thing, ASAP Rocky. She forgot her ID at home and was denied entry into a club. And so there was mixed reviews. Some people saying, is Rihanna, let her in. Others saying, that he's doing his job. So my question to you guys is, do you think he was doing his job or being a prick?
Being a prick.
I agree.
He can easily pull out his phone and Google Rihanna and see exactly who she is.
Exactly. Because that's what a lot of people were pointing out. They were saying, the purpose of checking the ID is to make sure you're over the age limit. We all know she's over the age limit.
Right. That's valid. Now, question: if the police were to come and raid and say, "Oh, I got to check IDs," would the establishment get in trouble because
Absolutely.
Rihanna?
Absolutely. If there was somebody from licensing watching and seeing that you're not checking everybody's ID, they can shut the business down that night.
This is true. Now, do you think the fine for that is equivalent to the money that he was going to make from Rihanna being there?
Right.
Absolutely not.
Right.
As soon as somebody hears Rihanna's in that club, they're gonna make 3, 4, 5 times as much as he's gonna make that night.
And that's what some people were saying. When the manager wake up and see this.
Like, what was you thinking?
Right.
It's a tricky thing, though.
It is
It's
a
tricky,
very
and I do get
tricky
both points.
situation.
In
I
my
do
head, I
get
was
both
thinking maybe he
points.
thought all right, maybe they're trying to test me, see if I'm checking everybody else's IDs and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Because sometimes club owners do that to the bouncers to make sure they're doing their job.
Yeah.
So that's the only reason I could think of why he was so hard set on not letting them in.
Right.
But like I said, you could easily could pull out his phone like, I'm Rihanna, Google it, and just
Or
show him.
ask the owner,
Or
like, yo,
he doesn't like Rihanna.
that too.
He probably was mad because she was with ASAP Rocky.
Because they probably left and went somewhere. And,
He's still
and-
mad about that whole Chris Brown thing.
Yeah. You
Because
just
they
gotta let it
usually
go.
do special accommodations for celebrities anyway,
Exactly.
like whisk them to the private area and
Bottles.
they don't pay a bill and da 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 da. So that's very surprising, but that is a very tricky situation.
It is because you're right. They do test you. He might have been new too. We're just giving him a bunch of
Right,
excuses.
Right. He wasn't trying to
He
lose
ain't
his
trying to
job
lose-
over no
right.
He
Rihanna.
ain't trying to lose his job. Okay. So yeah, we're gonna get into our topics, but before we do, please explain your professions, how long you've been in the game, before we get into our topic.
So I got into law enforcement in
You don't have to say the year, but
You're a vet. All they need to know is you a vet.
a long time ago.
you a vet.
So I spent just under
OG.
15 years in uniform in Boston. The last 21 years, I've been a criminal justice professor or university administrator. But I also do a lot of police training. In a non-COVID year, I have a company that does training. We do about 300 hours of training of police officers across the country.
Wow.
And a lot of times we get calls from police departments. When the stuff hits the fan, they call us in, and we kind of try to make things better.
I just was gonna ask.
And
that.
over the last year, we do a lot of cultural competence training. We spend a lot of time with police departments trying to get the police to understand the lived experience of the people that they're policing. And usually police training is outward facing, and you treat the police as a monolithic group and only focus on the differences in the community. We do the exact opposite. The name of my company is Renz Consulting, RENZ Consulting LLC. And we do introspective training. So we have police officers in small groups look at their biases, look at the things that they think about, try to understand why they feel the way they feel. We try to get police officers to understand community trauma, racial battle fatigue, vicarious trauma. We talk about the negative history of policing. 400 years that people of color have been on this continent, there's been a negative relationship between elements of the government, and we try to get them to understand that. So when police officers roll into a community and they wonder why the people don't like me, it has nothing to do with you sometimes. It has everything to do with the history. And when we talk about the civil rights struggle and black people marching, protesting peacefully just for the right to vote, and the police sicking the dogs on them and beating them down, and the fire department come in.
Fire hosing.
A lot of people in our community weren't there, but their parents were, their grandparents were. And remember, our history is an oral history. So we need you to understand that for generations, there's been a negative relationship between you and communities of color. Now you have to actually start building that bridge.
Yeah, I love the idea of evaluating your own biases and understanding the history, our history.
Because,
It's important.
like you said, they usually call you when
Something happens.
something happens or the fire's already set.
Right.
We'll go into it. Tilly, please let us know who you are.
Mine is nowhere near extensive as his.
Oh,
So you
yes,
should have
it
went
is.
first.
But I've had about 5 or 6 years experience in law enforcement. Spent 3 or 4 here, right here in New Haven. Born and raised here. Now I work on the federal military side down in Charlotte, North Carolina area. That's pretty much all I got.
Yes,
He covered
and we
most of
love it.
That was good, though.
You
But
have.
But the touch on what he was saying, as far as like community and policing and stuff like that, I felt like that was kind of like the route I was trying to take when I was a police officer here. Like I said, I know all 3 of them before I became a cop. I was in the community, whether it was at Terminal 110 doing security, or actually I came to y'all live show there one
Yes.
time. I came off break. I drove from
You
Whaley
did,
Avenue all the way over to Terminal
yes.
110.
And
We
just to pop
appreciate
in.
you.
But yeah, we had a lot. It was funny because I would say New Haven probably has more training than most other police departments on like diversity and biases and stuff like that. More so because we kind of talked about it earlier. But I feel like some police officers don't get in. I won't say they don't get into it for that, but they feel like it's not their job, not to not fix their biases, but to change the perception of the community to law enforcement. They're just there to do a job. They're there to enforce the law. And if you get locked up for a domestic, get locked up for a traffic stop, that's what they're there to do. They're not there to shake hands, kiss babies, or anything like that. So that's probably a lot of the training that you have to deal with to say, hey, like whether you like it or not, this is what you signed up for. This is how policing is in 2021, and this is how you either got to get with it, or like we were talking earlier, you might as well get out. 'Cause
Right.
This is what you got to do nowadays.
Right.
And they don't realize that it's actually making your job easier by building
Building a
that bridge.
relationship.
Because if I build that bridge and I am coming to even arrest you, it's not going to be such of a fight because it's like, look, I know this cop, he's good people.
Right.
You know,
I
let me
respect
just-
you. You
I've
respect
had
me.
that exact experience before, because not even people like I've seen people I know around and like, hey Tilly, what's up, blah blah blah. But even just me being a black officer, them knowing me from the city, whether it was they knew I grew up here, some of them knew my father, he worked for the city, my mother worked for the city. Like I've been there most of my life until recently. So I've had situations where I was dealing like maybe a domestic, where it wasn't anything arrestable, but I just go in there. I know how to talk to them just because I'm from here. I know how we
Right.
talk.
Right.
Right.
And then 5 minutes later, a backup officer shows up or officer shows up just to kind of like see what's going on. They see them, they almost immediately shut down. Or either that officer approaches them in a way that they don't like. Situation gets turned up.
Right.
Long story short, I end up arresting somebody because that officer made the situation something that wasn't even to begin with.
Right.
Aggravated.
And you're backup. Let me be the lead in this. You see, I'm de-escalating it. And that's why we wanted you on the perspective, because you were serving in the community in which you're from. And that's a point that we want to kind of bring to the table is being black and blue. Being a black man, especially with everything that's going on, and also being a man of law enforcement. Do you guys see a reaction different from when you go to a scene because you're black? Or
I think it depends, because there are some situations where I roll in and everyone knows me. They knew me from high school. They knew me from middle school. I roll in, I'm part of the community.
Right.
There's another situation where I roll in and they don't know me personally, but they also realize that I represent everything negative that they see in
Right.
policing. So there's a term, not to get too academic, but there's a term called double marginality, where black police officers sometimes are not fully accepted by policing,
Right.
but also they're not accepted from the community because now they're seen as sellouts because you're part of the problem.
Right.
It's very different when you show up and you're the first officer on scene and you get to de-escalate. It's very different when somebody else showed up, things are getting wild, and
Turned up.
then you have to come in and do cleanup. Now you look like you're part of the problem.
Right. How about you, Tilly?
Yeah, definitely. Because, like you said, sometimes you're not fully accepted into law enforcement, whether it's your peers, superiors, and then at the same time, you go into the community and they look at you like, oh, you're Uncle Tom, or you on the other side now. You ain't black no more. You blue. So it's hit or miss sometimes when you start dealing with people in the community, because some people, like I said, some people see you and it's like, oh yeah, at least we got somebody that we know, somebody that's from the community. That's a lot of people preach in law enforcement. It's like we have nobody in the community actually working in the community as law enforcement.
Right.
But at the same time, people preach that, but on the back end of it, it's like, oh well, now you just Uncle Tom and you on their side now. You don't know what it is on our side anymore. So it's a double-edged sword sometimes.
Yeah, we had posted on our social like a graphic that was saying like, oh, why are you, someone was being asked, why are you an officer? And they were like, well, you know, be the change you want to see. And most of the comments on the post were like, nah, like why be a police officer? Black people become police officers and they drink the Kool-Aid or whatever. But one person had an opposing opinion, and I want to read it because I think it's a great point. She said, I agree with this sentiment. I think we should have black officers. If we take the approach of trying to remove ourselves in these spaces, the alternative is worse, in my opinion. Imagine a country with only white officers and white opinions and white perspectives. We see how damaging that is in other spaces, and it's just as damaging in anything law enforcement. Do we really want to remove our black cops, judges, and lawyers? And I agree.
That's true.
I agree.
I totally agree. I am a criminal justice major. I come from a line of police officers. My uncle served 30 years at Briarwood Sheriff's Department. He started in the jails, and he went to the street, and he retired in the jails. So I always wanted to be like him. I always wanted to be a police officer. I don't even know, I forgot why I didn't go, but I always wanted to serve in somehow, whether it was in education, policing, probation, correction. I've always wanted to serve. So when people say things about like not becoming a cop or da-da, I'm like weirded out by that. Like, why? Why not?
Let me dovetail on Joe's point. Being a criminal justice major, so I was a department chair at an HBCU for a bunch of years.
Okay, sir.
And the one thing that I would tell them when people say we're anti-police, then you should be in criminal justice, because criminal justice is three things: cops, courts, corrections. So you're taking 1/3 of your job opportunities. And for the right person, policing is a fantastic career choice. And, you know, for me, you know, law enforcement doesn't owe me anything at this point. I got out of it what I needed. I made the decisions that I needed to make. I made the difference that I needed to make.
Right.
And I reject the fact that people say black people shouldn't be policing.
Right.
Because, again, we're looking at the pretext for the stop. Let's look before that. The problem is not there's not enough black cops in there, because if you have black officers and you put them through whack police training,
Yeah.
they become whack officers.
Right.
Yeah.
So a lot of the things that we're doing in my company, we're trying to get people to reimagine training and not just reimagining policing. So
Right.
working with Connecticut Post, working with the people that set the legislation for the training that police officers have to do. It's funny, in Connecticut, 905 hours of police training to get through the academy. And based on your department, between 80 and 100 hours is firearms. 4 hours community engagement.
Oh God.
Let's
That's a
flip
fact.
this around a little bit.
Right.
Yeah.
So if we add more, because how many times did you shoot people in your job? Do you shoot people every day? No.
I have not
I
shot
went
a single
15
person.
years, and I don't know that I've drawn my weapon on duty. But yet, I communicate with people of color all day, every day.
Right.
So let's change the emphasis. Let's change the training. And there are some police departments that are doing it. My grad school alma mater, Northeastern University in Boston, they're doing police training, their academy, a supplement for Boston, and the training for Cambridge. Every Friday is a half a day, because the second half of the day, the cadets are reassigned to community groups,
Wow.
either Boys and Girls Club or the Y or homeless shelters or something, because they want the cadets to have a relationship with community members that's not an enforcement way.
Right.
So if you can get officers to get into the community, get to know people, get to know the norms and mores, So it's my job to help build bridges between the police and the
Relations.
community. And there's a lot of officers. There's a lot of good officers
There is.
that are really trying to do the right thing.
Right, right.
And it's funny you brought that up because I just remembered a story from my academy that made me think about, like, I know around here people talk junk about New Haven PD, and like some of it is rightfully so. But I would say in our training, it was one point in our training we were doing community policing and addressing biases and stuff like that. And they had 2 people from the community come and talk to the academy class. One of the people from the community was my father.
Wow.
That was a big surprise. I couldn't stop laughing the entire time.
So you didn't know he was coming.
Had no idea he was coming.
That's funny.
And like I said, my father was born and raised here in New Haven. He worked as a firefighter for 30 years. And he's had his bad experiences with police departments, from being older to being younger back in the day, and back in the 70s and how old is my father? 60s maybe?
yeah.
Well, like bad experiences with New Haven Police Department. And even I've had my own experiences negatively with New Haven, Hampton Police Department, surrounding departments and stuff. And my father got up there and talked about his and mine. And pretty much the whole class, he asked questions, he explained the situations to them. And like my father, he clean cut person, never did anything in his life. So it's like he was explaining how one time he got pulled over for speeding, and another time he got profiled when he was younger. He was saying like a cop just pulled over, said he was a suspect for a robbery, and pointed a gun in his face. And that was right here in New Haven. Back
Wow.
when he was like 12 or 13 years old. So he's telling these stories of like how policing used to be and how we're trying to change it. And that's why I said people talk bad about PDs and New Haven specifically, but I would say more so than like the 4 hours that most PDs are allotted for community policing. New Haven, even after that, we did community stuff where we went out in the community. We ran outside most of the substations. I think weekly we did like our mile runs in New Hallville, right there by the substation and by the is the academy still over there on Sherman?
I think
Academy
so.
moved.
Yeah.
I think so.
It's
over
over
Are they
there. It's
moving?
over by
By
Southern,
Southern.
now because we
Yeah.
used to go back and forth.
Oh.
I know they were moving it before, but yeah, we used to run through New Hallville. We used to run down by Hill House and stuff like that. So I would say more
Making
so
your
than not,
presence.
New Haven was on the forefront of like community policing and stuff like that.
I respect it. I definitely respect it.
Same.
Like you said, they need to do the switch. That's the key. Do you think that the switch is happening more with everything that's going on? George Floyd and all these different things that are coming to light more. Do you think that you're being requested more often now than before, Dr.
I think the
Boyd?
requests are different now because let's admit, the murder of George Floyd is the line of demarcation for the views toward modern policing. Everything after George Floyd just changes. Just the rules are very, very different. So there's a lot of police departments that say, we understand police reform is coming. We understand the rules are changing. Let's get people in here ahead of time to get some of this training.
Right.
And if I can talk about New Haven, in Boston, we did Operation Ceasefire 96, 97, where we did engagement in the community, and youth homicide fell by 56%.
Wow.
Several years after, New Haven called us down, and we trained New Haven, and it became Project Longevity, which is getting police officers into the community. And when Chief Reyes was the chief, he called us in, and we did a lot of training for the command staff because it's really important that the command staff knows what's going on. Just training the officers without the command staff, the command staff are going to change it all the time. So
Right.
Chief Reyes had us come in. And then when Chief Dominguez took over, brought us in again and did some more training. So it's moving the needle in the right direction. Let's understand, this issue that we have, it didn't just start.
Oh,
No,
right.
right
So
at
there's
all.
nothing that's going to happen in 2021 that's going to fix it.
Right.
Long process.
Because there's young brothers like Tilly that are going to come through that understand, that know the community, that are going to make a difference. And there's a lot of young brothers and sisters that are starting to do that.
And like you said, it's all about the mindset coming in. Like I said, you have to have a spirit of serving. You have to know you have to serve your community, serve the people that you want to protect. You can't go into law enforcement thinking like you're going to be defensive. it's not going to work.
Right.
Well,
That's my thing. It's like, why is it automatically like I'm a police officer and all I'm thinking about is who can I arrest? You know?
Well, I think the mindset of policing, kind of like people, most people are young, between 21 to 25, 26 years old.
Right.
And the mindset going into policing is like, I'm a running gun, I'm gonna catch the bad guy.
Yeah.
And that's the complete mindset of most people getting into policing.
Right.
So I always said a bunch of times, I've had this conversation 100 times. Some people just have that mindset, and it doesn't matter if they have 4 hours of training, 100 hours of training,
That's true.
1,000 hours of training. They're gonna have that mindset whether you like it or not.
Right.
And I always tell people, they're like, oh, well, how can you weed those people out through the academy, through the background investigation, psychological test? I said, it's almost impossible for you to
Sometimes
say,
can't, right.
this person has this mindset of policing, he shouldn't be a police officer. It's almost impossible to ask certain questions to say, oh, this person can't be a police officer. I wish there were questions or some kind of test or
Right.
evaluation you could, but unfortunately, just like everywhere, you're going to have your bad apples,
Right.
and you're going to have your bad police officers, your good police officers, and your police officers that are in between, unfortunately.
It's true.
And that's just how it works.
So let's dovetail on what he said, because he said something really good.
Yep.
So to be a police officer in this country, 2 requirements. 1, you have to be
Graduate high
21
school.
years of age.
Right?
Yeah.
And have to
2,
graduate.
you have at least a GED.
Right.
Clear record.
That's it.
Period.
Yeah.
And let's also acknowledge, not to get too academic, 21 years of age, we give them a badge and a gun, we give them discretion, we allow them to make decisions. The average adult brain doesn't fully develop until 25 or 26.
Right.
But yet think about what you were doing at 21.
Right.
So, come on now.
So I was having this conversation a while back when they were trying to bump the juvenile age up to 25 here in New Haven, or I think it was nationwide or something like that. And people were like, oh, they're bumping up the juvenile age. And I don't know about you, but arresting a juvenile or dealing with juvenile is 100 more steps than dealing with an adult. But I was having the argument of, well, if we bump up the age for juveniles to 25, saying the brain's not fully developed, why are we not bumping up the age for law enforcement to 25?
Right.
Because if you're saying
Right.
that juveniles out here committing crimes, their brain isn't developed enough to understand what they're doing, how
the
can you not
same
have that same
applies.
concept for
Right.
other employment, something definitely like law enforcement or fire department or whatever kind of employment that you can just be 21 to get into, that you're dealing with something as serious as whether it's pulling somebody out of a burning building or
Right.
life or death situation, whether you have to shoot somebody or not, or just dealing with traffic violation.
Right.
That's a
And
valid point.
The second point, words matter.
Absolutely.
We keep referring to law enforcement,
Right.
which is problematic.
Right.
Because, again, not to get too academic, I am a college professor. But
Yeah.
School us.
enforcing criminal law as it applies to index crime is only about 20% of what the police actually do.
Right.
So calling the police law enforcement is like calling me a test grader. I actually do grade tests, but there's a lot
That's
more
not
that I
it.
do.
Right.
So policing, between 50 and 55% of policing is service and administrative. Law enforcement is only 20%. If we're bringing them in, telling them they're going to enforce laws, the run and gun attitude that the young people get, they're looking for the bad guy, and
Yep.
they want to, arrest people.
Yeah.
The other thing is, we also acknowledge there was a study that we did in Massachusetts that said 74% of the people in Suffolk County in Boston that was convicted of a crime had a history of substance alcohol abuse. So if we acknowledge that, wouldn't it make sense that we would put more money into substance abuse as
Right.
opposed to enforcement? One more thing.
Listen.
We also acknowledge that
Make it plain.
there's a larger percentage of people of color that are incarcerated. That's not just a policing thing, because there are more people of color that are prosecuted, more convicted, more incarcerated. But we also know that the average literacy rate of people incarcerated between 5th and 7th grade.
Yes.
So it seems to me that the people that are in there, why don't we mandate education at that point? Secondly, if we want to fix the crime problem, because crime is not the problem,
Right.
crime is symptomatic of larger problems in society. If we fix some of the
Funding.
societal problems like unemployment and substance abuse and undereducation, crime will take care of itself.
I agree with that 1,000%.
Take your time, Pastor.
Take your time,
Right?
Pastor. I know you preaching
Right,
in here.
he was over here
But
preaching.
everything you're saying is absolutely right. And if you think about it, when you're a kid and it's like, oh, look, I want to be a police officer because I'm getting the bad guy. It's ingrained in your mind as I'm getting the bad guy
Like
from when
cops
you were
and
a
robbers
kid.
from when you were little.
Cops and robbers. And it's just, that's the mindset that needs to be changed and dismantled. And I think you guys both do great work. Thank you for your service, because people like you are the reason why change is going to happen.
Right.
It is happening. So definitely
change
kudos
is
to you.
here.
Right.
Right.
Let me make one more point. Black Lives Matter is not anti-police.
Right.
Right.
Black Lives Matter is pro-accountability.
Right.
And we also acknowledge that if a black person is killed, their killer is less likely to be brought to justice than if the person is white.
Absolutely.
So that's the point that we're trying to make.
Right.
And if I say Black Lives Matter and you say all lives matter, first of all, that's a false narrative.
Right.
You know, if you have a significant other in your life and your significant other says, do you love me? Well, first of all, if they're asking, you're doing something wrong.
Right.
But if they said, do you love me? And I say, I love everybody. That's kind of like the
Right.
whole
Right. I'm like, what?
Right.
I'm about to check you.
all lives can't matter until black lives do in fact matter.
Right.
Right.
And if I
Because
say-
we're a part of the all.
Right.
Absolutely.
And the
if
reason
I
why we're
say-
saying is because it don't. They don't.
So if I say black lives matter and you say blue lives matter, first of all, blue
It's
is
not,
not
a
a
life.
life.
Amen.
Blue's an
It's a
occupation.
job.
Blue's a
Yep.
choice.
Yeah.
Every day we take off our uniform, we're black again.
Absolutely.
Yep.
So I can take off my uniform and decide I'm a carpenter.
Right.
So blue is an occupation. So that's a false equivalency. So that's like
That's
walking into a
excellent.
cancer hospital and saying, you know, there are other diseases too.
Right.
So
Lord.
blue lives matter, squash that.
Right.
Doesn't work.
I agree.
Right. I definitely agree. And it's just so crazy that the numbers are there, the statistics are there, the evidence is there. That boy that shot up that church down south, he was asked, do he want to go to Burger King first before going to the police station? You
Right.
don't see any bruises on him, no scratches, no nothing when he took his picture. The two white people that got arrested, which I feel like they might be going to trial soon. Ahmaud Arbery, when he was running. They wouldn't have got arrested if that person in their group message that seen the video said something.
Right.
So it's all there. And I don't get why certain individuals still want to be blind to the, it's like they want to be have the struggle so bad. Like
It's
they
all
want to
about-
be a part of the struggle so bad.
It's all about accountability. They're not ready to face that they have to be held accountable
Right.
for
That's
their
what I was gonna
actions.
say. I'm a firm believer in there are some people that are just committed to not trying to understand what's going on, and there are some people who I think hide behind their fake, I don't know what's going on. I think they use that as a way to be like, oh, I don't know what's going on, so that it can't possibly
All
happen.
I know is I'm not a part of the problem. I'm
Right.
not racist. I have black friends.
Right, I
And that's-
remember I had worked with this nurse,
I was just
white,
about
of
to say
course.
it, yeah.
And I remember, this was like a few years back, and I don't remember what was going on at the time. Black men were being killed by police officers, of course. But she had said something like, do you guys think that's really happening? And I'm like, what do you mean do I think that's really happening? Do you not watch TV? Do you not be on social media? Yes, it's happening. That's why we're talking about it.
And I feel like your training needs to be across the board and not just for policing. Because working in the hospital setting, you see it a lot of times too. Oh, they're just here drunk, or they're
Yep.
on drugs. But you have to know what is going on in
Right.
the communities to make them want to medicate themselves, because I
Right.
can't find a job. I had a marijuana charge from years ago that was very minimal that I'm still not getting a job for. So I'm going to self-medicate myself to actually be able to want to even be here.
Or
You
even
understand?
education.
Well,
That's true.
let's add one more thing to this,
Yeah.
since we're talking about policing.
Yeah,
So let's also understand the trauma that police also go through,
absolutely.
because there's a lot of trauma in policing and a lot of self-medication, which is what triggered that. And police officers are 300 times more likely to be alcoholic than the general population. They are 3 times more likely to commit suicide than the general population. The average divorce rate in America is about 54%. The average divorce rate for police officers, it's approaching 70%. So let's understand that there's trauma in policing
Right.
that we don't talk about.
Nope.
Because for the 4th year in a row, police suicide has outpaced police homicide. Police getting killed when police officers die, they're more likely to die at their own hand than by the bad guy, but we don't talk about that.
Right.
So we need to normalize asking for help because there's a lot of cops out there that are hurting, and those are the problem officers. Because hurt people
Hurt
People.
people. Yep.
You're right. That's absolutely right. And there's stuff that they have going on either home and in the I just was about to ask, as far as have you seen something where you had to intervene or felt like you should intervene or you were scared to intervene because, oh, he's the pig or, that concept of policing. That right there can trigger a police officer, and it could be a trauma to them too. Like, dag, I should have said something, or if I said something, this would have happened.
Dealing with that guilt.
Or I was scared to because I knew the aftermath of it. Have you ever experienced anything like that?
I would say I wouldn't say on the extreme level of like intervening on like a shooting or somebody beating somebody up or something like that, but just something as simple as like saying you're on a call and that other officer is just changing the complete tone of that situation, and you just know to step in like, hey, I got this. You don't have to say anything. You can just step back.
Cool off.
I'll let you know if I need you. But just kind of just being able to speak up and just not let them take over the control of the situation. And a lot of times it's usually senior officers. Like you'll be on 2-3 years. You had this situation under control. You got 8, 9, 10-year veteran coming in. He's like, all right, what do you got? And tries to take over the situation. Maybe not so much of just being an asshole, but just because he believes he has seniority and he thinks he's trying to help you out being that senior officer. But like I said, sometimes those senior officers aren't understanding the communities today.
Right.
So whether I have 2 years on or 6 months on, I might
You got more
understand that
leverage.
situation more than that 9-year officer.
Right.
So I would say situations like that happen more often than not, where you have to like kind of step in like, hey, I got this. Don't worry about it.
Right. That's why I think we need more black, because I personally would like to see every non-black officer have a black partner, because I feel like if we have good, because I know there's some black ones that are corrupt as well.
That's a big ask.
I know, I'm sure it is, but that's something I would like to see, because I think having good black police officers in every situation could de-escalate and save so much unnecessary trauma, I think.
Let me change that a little bit. What if every black officer had a white partner, and then that way the white officer can watch the interaction between the black officer and can learn?
That works too.
Absolutely.
But I think we also have to have that white officer has to be willing to, like you said before, step back and let that black officer handle the situation. If you know, because even when I worked in psych, and even then, like, sometimes I would have to say, like, chill, like, let me talk to this person. Because I might have a better
all the
rapport
time.
than you, and they're going to receive what I'm saying way better than you, who they don't even like, you who's aggressive, you who think, oh, they're just a drug addict, you know?
See it all the
I-
time.
But let's add to this. So go back to your scenario where you're the officer and you've got it under control, and then the other 10-year veteran comes in. Talk through that scenario again, because I'm going to show you what our people do that messes this up.
I'm saying like I walk in, I have the situation, let's just say it's a domestic, and nothing physical. They were just arguing back and forth. Words were says. Now she wants him out of the house, right?
And he ain't leaving.
And he's not
All my
leaving.
stuff is here.
So I pretty much try to de-escalate the situation, going like, hey, you have anywhere else to stay? You have go take a walk for a little bit, anywhere to go.
Then the other officer comes in.
And the other officer comes in, and he's more like, I'm asking like, hey, go to mom's house, friend's house. Other officer's like, all right, either you get out or you're going to jail. And then it automatically escalates that situation.
And then you ask the officer to back off and let you take it, right?
Yeah.
And then the community member's like, that's right, back off, he got this. Sit down.
Yep.
Now you're
Oh.
you're going against his
Yeah.
Like,
leadership
oh,
and
really?
authority. Uh-huh.
Now, that's what people do.
I'm sure.
Because a lot of
sure.
times,
That's true.
people talk themselves into arrests.
Exactly.
People talk themselves into tickets.
I've seen so many calls I've been on where people would literally talk themselves into cuffs. Just like that situation there. I've seen it probably 50-50 go both ways, where you get there and it's 100% you don't have to arrest somebody. You just did a de-escalate, have a conversation, and figure out a solution outside of sending somebody to jail. All something, like you said, whether it's I'm not going to jail, blah, 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 or it's another officer escalates the situation. Now they're yelling at the other officer. That veteran officer, now he puts hands on the guys tussling with the officer. Now somebody has to go.
Right, right.
Because they don't realize that officers don't want to write reports.
Right.
They don't want to write a
No,
report. So when they
no,
come on the scene,
no, we do not.
let's talk it out. You don't have to, and then your escalated situation. Oh, now we got to go in. Now we got to write a report.
And I think that the community just has to trust that that black cop has his back, or in that example. So look, I got this cool off.
And another thing I always preached before was educating the community on what we do and why we do it.
And the steps
Right.
that
That's
happen.
important.
Just
before.
like
Yeah.
far as motor vehicle stop. I don't know now how it is with legalizing
Lord, I can
marijuana.
tell you.
Right.
But on a motor vehicle stop, if I smell marijuana coming out your car, I can instantly pull everybody out the car, search your car, pop the trunk, open the glove box, at the whole shebang.
Right.
A lot of people don't understand that. Whether they think it's right or wrong,
Probable.
before weed was legalized, that's how it was. Whether I could smell it from afar, I could smell it when I walk up to the car, whether I seen like a little roach in the ashtray or seen little baggies or anything. And you know, people smoke weed in their car. They might not smoke that day, but their car just smells like weed.
Oh yeah.
So instantly I walk up, I can search the car, and people are like, you can't search my car, I wasn't smoking weed. It's like,
Probable
I kind of
cause.
can.
Yeah.
But they don't understand that it
Right.
becomes a big thing.
Oh, it's because I'm black.
whether
period.
they refuse to get out the car, now I got to pull you out the car, now you're getting arrested, versus you have no weed in the car, your car just happens to smell like weed. I search it, I find nothing, I write you a warning for whoever I pulled you over for, I write you a ticket, give you a verbal warning, send you on your way. Now it turns into an arrest because you don't understand how the law works.
Right.
Right.
That's
so
a great
just like
point.
Good,
so
yeah.
just like law enforcement needs more education and more training on the community, I think community needs training on understanding why we do things and how we do things.
I
Absolutely.
agree.
Just so
I think it definitely has to be on both sides.
To close that gap on the
The bridge.
the bridge
You
between
can't
law
start
enforcement
building
and the community.
the bridge right here, and then the other side we got to bridge it so that we
Yeah.
can meet in the middle. Yeah.
Right.
Can't build a bridge from the middle. You got to start on both sides.
That's
Yep.
it. Oh, you better call. You been having all the nuggets, right? Now, before we go, defunding the police. What are your thoughts on that? Look.
Can I go first on that one?
You got it.
First of all, the problem is people use terms and not ideas.
Right.
So when we talk about defund, that's not a new concept.
Right.
It's a new term that we're using to be hurtful because, again, hurt
Right.
people
Hurt people.
And community members are hurt. They want the police to hurt. But this is the same song and dance that every police chief and every mayor goes through every May. It's called resource reallocation. And in years like this, when everything was shut down, nobody's paying taxes, nobody's buying stuff, the city gets fewer tax dollars, so they can't spend nearly as much.
Right.
So we still have to fund schools, and we can't give, if we only have $1, we can't give the police 35 cents like we used to. We got to give you 32 cents. And that's what it looks like. But when you think about the defund thing, most police departments are about 35% of a city's budget. That's the biggest part, 35%. And of the police budget, between 70 and 80% of the police budget is personnel. It costs an awful lot of money to train this dude and uniform him, pay his salary, and pay his benefits.
Right.
So of that whole thing, 70 to 80% is personnel. Of that 70 to 80%, 20% of that is overtime. So in the defund movement, ultimately what they're saying is let's take some of the overtime money and reallocate it into preventative programs because
Right.
remember, crime is not the problem.
Yep.
Crime is symptomatic of other problems.
Yep.
This happened in Los Angeles, talking to Mayor Garcetti's people. When they wanted to put money into preventative programs, they lost a whole lot of money because there was not a lot of taxes. They said, we're going to shut down a bunch of programs. One of the programs they shut down, Parks and Recs. Makes sense. So all these kids that were normally supervised are now unsupervised. So now you have young kids, school-age kids, because school's not in session.
Right.
Yep.
They're
Ain't
out
got
doing
nothing to
stupid
do.
stuff. So then they had to increase the police budget for overtime to deal with all these kids. So when we talk to the mayor's people, take some of the overtime, reallocate it back into Parks and Recs again, and you won't need to have the police. So when we talk defund, we're actually talking resource reallocation.
Right. Thank
Right,
you.
and that's what it means to me.
Right, same to me. And people are taking as defund, like, oh, you're just gonna take the money from the police officers. That's not what they mean. Like you said, you have to build a relationship with the community. If you do more of that, you would need less. It will be less of
Enforcing.
the friction between the police and the community. So I'm happy that you explained that in detail, because a lot of people think defund, oh, you just want to get rid of the police
Right.
officers. We're just gonna have a free for all. Everybody's gonna be shooting each other.
Yeah,
like
a lot
this
of people are
zombie-
taking it as abolish the police.
Like the purge.
The purge. Yeah, I just was about to say it. That's not what it means. We're allocating the money into things that are very much needed to
That's
make
what
the
I
police.
do.
Yeah.
I take complex things and I make them really simple.
You better.
What a
come on
professor.
here. Yes,
Right.
Yes. So we're
That's
so
job
happy.
security for you.
Right. You guys, let the people know where they can find you if they have any more questions about policing, anything like that. If they want to hire you for this program, because honestly, like I said, it needs to be more than just the police officers. But yeah, go ahead.
If you go to my website,
Dr.
renzconsulting.net, RENZ consulting.net, and you can read about our company, you can read about stuff that we're doing, and there's a link at the bottom. You want to email, shoot me an email.
Sounds good, Tilly. You?
I don't got a company or business, but you can follow me on Instagram, Till Hitchens. Also, you can follow my other
I
podcast
just was about to say it.
at School and the Gang. Shout out to Biz, O, and School.
Yeah.
Don't be saying a little podcast.
So is
I
he
know,
going to
it's big.
invite me
Y'all
to his
fancy out
pod-
here. We only doing it
Nah,
on
nah,
Zoom.
nah.
You gotta
We all
speak it.
started somewhere.
When do I
Right.
get the invite to your podcast?
Yo, I'll
And it's
get
virtual,
your
too.
information.
Okay,
We'll sign it
all
up.
Yeah.
I'm feeling left out here.
Listen.
You even got to leave from home. You can do it right on Zoom.
Absolutely.
See, he's doing
See?
good stuff. I want to be
That's it.
part of it.
That's it. Absolutely. Thank you guys for coming. Thank you for sharing your knowledge. It's definitely needed. I'm so happy we're able to do this episode, and we appreciate you guys. Thank you for your work.
Thanks for
Thank
having
you.
us.
Yay. Jill, do you have a
Positive vibe.
vibe?
Honestly, my positive vibe is basically get informed. Definitely get informed.
Yes,
That's
get
the only way
informed.
you can bridge the gap. So before you start making statuses and start going on a rant, definitely inform yourself.
Right.
Absolutely.
Inform yourself.
Right.
Key. Do your own research.
Right. Don't go off of someone else's knowledge. Definitely do your own research on things.
Absolutely.
So that's my positive vibe for the week.
Thank you so much. Until next time.
Toodles. Bye, guys. Thank you.
Thank you guys for tuning in to another episode of the Team Podcast. Make sure you rate, subscribe, review. Let us know how we're doing. Make sure you also follow us on Instagram and Twitter at The Team Podcast. On Facebook, hashtag The Team Space Podcast. And it's lit, you know.
Yes, you can listen to all of our episodes on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spreaker, iHeartRadio, and if you're a visual person, check us out on YouTube. Also, make sure you subscribe to our email for more information as well.
And if you would like to give us any suggestions about Drop That Line, rooting, you tried it, please email at us at theteampodcast@gmail.com. Also, if you would like to be a guest on our show, fill out our guest inquiry sheet.
Yes.
And we have a new hotline. So make sure you text The Team, THATEAM, to 475-300-0444 to get the latest in all things group chat.
Period.
Period.